Ryan Moore, a professor of cognitive science at the University of Britain, runs an experiment on the human brain. He pays one of his students to run an analysis on her. Ryan believes that humans don't use 10% of their brain, but rather they use the brain to its full capacity, and he wants to find out how the brain works. Ryan tells her that he will send a message to her brain and get the reply on the screen. Although the experiment fails, he notices some readings from the probe and tries to listen, but all he hears is static noise. 18 months later, Ryan has a science presentation trying to prove that there is life after death and that it is possible to communicate with the dead. He asks for a volunteer, and Tom steps up, requesting to speak to his father. Ryan collects his DNA and sends a message to his father. A voice responds asking how is Muffin, which frightens Tom, as that is the name of his dog, and there is no way Ryan should know that. Tom still has his doubts and tells Ryan to ask his father some questions. Ryan asks several questions and gets the right answers, but unfortunately, there is a repeat from the links, causing Ryan to stop the experiment. Tom looks on in shock as he goes back to his seat. The next day, while Ryan is working on his experiment, a lady from the presentation, Megan, comes to visit him. She tells Ryan that she needs to know if her dead husband, John, is okay. She offers to pay, but Ryan's wife, Emily, tells her that they don't take money, and Ryan starts the machine. Ryan connects to John and starts talking to him while Emily leaves the room. Megan is happy to hear from her husband as Ryan communicates her questions to him, and she receives an answer. Megan tells John that she misses him, but John asks why, which surprises her, and she starts apologizing. She tries to ask another question, but the machine loses signal again. Megan starts to cry, explaining how John died, and asks Ryan if he communicates with someone he lost. Ryan confesses that he speaks to his grandfather only and asks what she is sorry for. She says that John used to get bad migraines and his vision will be blurred. He asks for a lift, but she refuses, leading to John leaving the house the day he died. After Megan leaves, Emily gets angry as Ryan does not have her time because he is always working on his project all the time. Ryan tells her that he is close, but she insists that he finds a balance. Emily tells him that she gets a prank call regularly, and Ryan assures her that he will change the number on the poster to his. Soon after, he goes upstairs and looks at his daughter's picture, causing him to have flashes of the time he was searching for her. The next day at work, Steve asks Emily for a drink, but he shuts him down, despite Steve's persistence. Elsewhere, Ryan tries to communicate with Sam, but he gets no response from her, implying that she is not dead yet. Not long after, Ryan and Emily have a therapy session together, but they both talk about Sam and how it is affecting their lives. At work, Ryan's colleagues tries to convince him to bring his invention to the university, but Ryan refuses, stating it will only slow him down. Right after, Ryan steals a key card and uses it to access the school's storage. He takes a small portion of a chemical and leaves. Later that night, Ryan has another presentation, and Claire volunteers to talk with Michael, her son. Emily watches from the door. Claire speaks to Michael, asking where he is, and he tells her that he is at home. Claire becomes confused and tries to receive clarification. However, the repeat happens again, preventing any further conversation. After the show, Emily asks him if he has used the machine to talk with Sam before, but he denies it. It turns out Sam went missing because Ryan forgot to pick her up from school. Ryan confronts the principal and asks for any confrontation about Sam, but he says they haven't found anything. He asks her about the man that picked her up, but she confesses that they have not been able to identify him. However, she promises him that they will continue to search for her. Emily thinks about Sam and tries to use the machine to talk to her, but it fails. Ryan enters and she lies to him that she came to get the paint. Ryan asks her if she believes that it works, but she says that it won't change the way she feels about it. Ryan tells her that Michael had the same symptoms as Sam, which bugs Ryan and Emily. While they talk, they are interrupted by Laurie. Ryan asks Laurie what he wants, and he tells him that it's either he shows him how the machine works or he is fired. Ryan then explains how the machine works, and Laurie asks him what happens if more than one voice comes through. But Ryan does not have a solution to that. Laurie decides to test the machine. His father, John, responds, and this makes Laurie angry, as he did not know his father was dead. He calls his mother to give the phone to his father, but finds out that he is dead. Later on, Ryan meets with Mr. Harrison, a teacher at Sam's school. He shows Ryan some of Sam's works and explains to him that he saw Sam being picked up by a guy. Ryan tries to blame Harrison for Sam's disappearance, but Harrison reveals that it is Ryan's fault for not picking up his daughter on time. Later that day, Ryan tries to communicate with Sam, and although he does not get a response at first, he hears Sam's voice as he is about to switch off the machine, confirming that he is dead. He asks her to describe where she is, but Sam says that it is dark and he can't look at the bright light in front of her. He asks her to remember what happened outside the school, but she can't remember. Realizing that Sam is dead, Ryan becomes sad and starts to drink. He remembers when Sam was sick and Emily couldn't find her symptoms online, but Ryan believes it is his fault. Ryan notices that he is losing his hair, and Emily asks him if Sam is alive. While they talk, Laurie calls him and he leaves the house immediately. Laurie informs him that he knows he has been stealing his car to get a dangerous chemical, and asks if Emily knows how dangerous the chemical is. Ryan assures him that he knows what he is doing, but Laurie tells him that he is fired and asks him to leave his card at the reception. However, Ryan reveals that he spoke to Sam but did not tell Emily about it. He asks for Laurie's help, but Laurie refuses to help him as he does not want to kill himself. Afterward, Ryan tricks a worker to use his card and takes all the chemicals. The chemical is having an adverse effect on Ryan, but he hides it from Emily. At dinner, Ryan tries to bring up Sam, but Emily tells him that he isn't interested as they are having a lonely evening, and she does not want it to be ruined. Ryan receives a call and decides to use the machine again. This time, he sees a distorted image of Sam on the screen, and Sam says that she is tired. She asks why he is not always around, and Ryan promises to be around more. He asks Sam who she was with at school, but she states she does not know as she never went anywhere, and the machine stops working again. Ryan goes to meet Emma, Sam's classmate, and asks her if Sam ever talks about speaking to somebody. Emma says that Sam talked with someone at lunch, but she refused to talk about it. Ryan asks her to describe the man and becomes aggressive, causing Emma to run away. Emily is late for their therapy session, but she is surprised not to see Ryan. She tells the therapist that they will be canceling the session as she wants to focus on the future. Back at home, Ryan tries the machine again, increasing the frequency this time. Though the frequency is too high and Ryan steps outside for a while, he goes back inside. He sees Sam and hugs her. She asks how she got there and cries, saying that she is supposed to be at school. Sam freaks out and Ryan takes her to her room. Elsewhere, Emily visits Steve at his house. She tells that she does not know why she is there, and Steve asks if Ryan knows about Sam, but Emily says Ryan does not need to know. She tries to leave, but Steve confronts her for taking his daughter away, and Emily tells him to be grateful as she gave him a way out. At home, Ryan tries to wake Sam and gives her CPR, but she does not respond. He goes back to the garage to find out Sam's location, while Emily knocks on the door, but he does not answer. Ryan touches the machine, despite Emily's warnings, and the light goes off. He wakes up and sees a scar on his face. It turns out that Ryan returned to the past to find out what happened. He goes up to Sam's room, but she cannot see him. He tries to get her back in the house, but he collapses in the process. Emily checks the garage's camera and sees Ryan talking with Sam. She goes to her room and sees Sam's dead body. Back in the past, Ryan wakes up and tries to get Sam from school, but she disappears. Emily runs the machine, and Ryan returns to the present. She asks him to explain what's happening, and Ryan explains that he does not talk to dead people, but he talks to them while they are asleep. Emily is confused as everyone he spoke to is dead, but he said they weren't when he spoke to them. Emily is angry that he spoke to Sam, but he tells him that he knows that Sam is not his daughter, as his DNA didn't work. He figures out that the room contains trace levels, and whenever he uses the machine, a small amount is given off, killing the people he talked to, and none of them would have been dead if he didn't speak with them. Emily is angry and blames him for Sam's death. He finds out that he went to the past and asks him to do it again. Emily wants him to stop Sam from dying, but he tells her that he can't speak to anyone anymore. Ryan decides to speak through something and goes back to the moment he first tested the machine with his students. Well, that is all for this video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe to our channel and make sure to like this video if you want to see more of us and help the channel grow. Also, comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.